Testing audio for stream. Testing audio for stream.
Good evening. I'd like to bring tonight's meeting to order, the special business meeting of Council, the District of Squamish. The first item on our agenda is welcome to the Squamish Nation Traditional Territory. And just before I do that, my name is Councillor John French, and for the month of May, I'm the acting mayor, and in that capacity, I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Mayor Herford is joining us, and we'll hear from him in just a moment. And as part of acknowledging the Squamish Nation Traditional Territory, I want to share with you a traditional Squamish Nation greeting. The Squamish have a saying that goes something like, "Hot squalin, quins kuchnomi." And the quick translation is, "I'm happy to see you." And as is often the case with translations, this doesn't really do the phrase total justice, because the Squamish, for them, this phrase also incorporates feelings. So more literally translated, it's something more like, "In seeing you, I'm having good feelings." So thank you very much for joining us this evening. And please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed. It's being recorded as well and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish website following the meeting tonight. If you have concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting, Ms. Von Blondeau. And a quick housekeeping note, the washrooms that normally would be available next door are not available to us because of the renovations taking place here at Brennan Park. There are just outside of the door to my left here, portable washrooms that are available to us this evening. And there are also washrooms over at the ice arena side of the building. Council, the next item on our agenda is to adopt the agenda. That's moved by Councillor Hamilton and seconded by Councillor Stoner. All in favor? Motion carries. And next up, item number 3 is a virtual mayor's message. So at this point, I'll turn things over to Mayor Armin Herford.
Thank you very much, Councillor French. First, I'd like to check that you can hear me okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. As you may have noticed, I'm participating remotely today as I'm in Ottawa for a conference over the next few days. I'd like to recognize that Ottawa is built on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. In acknowledging this territory, I'd like to recognize the long history of the Algonquin people as the traditional guardians of the land and respecting their enduring relationship with it. I would also like to acknowledge the presence and contributions of all Indigenous people who call Ottawa home. I'll endeavor to continue my learning about this history over my time here. So thank you very much, and also thank you, Councillor French, for the lovely welcome and some new vocabulary and translation for us. So thank you so much. I look forward to the conversation today.
All right, thank you, Mayor Herford. I'll see you in a few days. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, at this point, I would like to turn this over to our planning staff for a presentation.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just gonna wait. Will the presentation show up on the screen there? Have I done the wrong thing?
I'll just check with our IT expert.
I did share.
Think we're going to bring in a friend.
This is typical with my presentations. What did I do wrong?
Just gotta share it first. So just press
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Oh, just press it one more time.
Oh,
Share it.
yeah.
That works too.
Okay.
Full screen now.
All right. Good evening, Chair, Mayor, and Council. My name is Matt Gunn. I'm a planner with the District of Squamish. I'm here with my colleague, Sarah McJanet, who is the Manager of Policy Planning. We're here to present the Garibaldi Estates Neighbourhood Plan for the public hearing. The background of this project begins in 2018 with the adoption of the official community plan, which identified the Garibaldi Estates as an existing neighbourhood where a sub-area plan should be completed. The OCP also included policy that indicates the plan should provide support for increased housing diversity and density and initiate a process to repeal the Squamish VLA subdivision bylaw to support infill development near Garibaldi Village. To implement the OCP policy, the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood plan process was initiated in 2021. In stage 2 and 3 of the process, land use scenarios and policy directions were developed. A draft plan was developed over the course of stage 4. In the second half of 2023, the drafting process was impacted when the province initiated changes to land use legislation. The new legislation was incorporated into the draft plan, which was published on Let's Talk Squamish, our engagement platform, for consideration by residents. Council considered and provided feedback on the draft plan at a committee of the whole meeting in September of 2024. The plan was given first reading in December of 2024 and second reading in April of this year. In the following slides, I'll take a moment to discuss the plan and a few of these stages in more detail. The neighborhood plan outlines a vision for the future of the neighborhood, which aligns with guiding principles developed during the planning process. The plan promotes a complete community through an increased diversity of land uses. Employment and services are supported within the Garibaldi Village and throughout the neighborhood as accessory commercial units. Mixed-use retail residential buildings are envisioned as part of a new pedestrian-oriented high street along Diamond Head Road. Expanded ground-oriented residential uses such as multiplexes and townhouses are supported between Mamquam Road and Diamond Road. Public open spaces are supported through planned policies, including the development of a greenway along Mamquam Road and a new neighborhood park. The plan highlights transportation and connectivity opportunities through proposed improvements to active transportation and the establishment of mid-block connections. The planning process involved extensive community engagement, which occurred at the involved level of the IAP2 spectrum of public participation. Staff worked directly with the public throughout the process to ensure public concerns and aspirations were consistently understood and considered. The engagement occurred over 3 major plan stages that were just mentioned. In stage 2, the process focused on the neighborhood and community context. The focus of stage 3 was future neighborhood scenarios and emerging directions. And the focus of stage 4 was proposed land uses and policies presented in a draft plan. A significant component of the engagement for this planning process occurred on the Let's Talk Squamish page. This project was one of the first major planning projects launched on the new platform. The page offered a number of resources and engagement activities, including background information surveys, interactive mapping activities, Q&A and FAQ, reports, emerging ideas and draft land uses, updated links to staff reports and council recordings, as well as the draft plan. The planning process involved a broad range of engagement touchpoints. These included 32 in-person events with 490 participants, 2 virtual open houses with 68 attendees, 4 surveys with 1,066 responses, 43 direct emails presented to council, 9,700 visits to the Let's Talk Squamish project site. That included 575 subscribers who were kept up to date with emails and 125 questions that were answered by staff. There were 4,500 postcards sent to Squamish properties, 855 notification letters sent, and on social media, planning process events resulted in over 52,000 post impressions and a reach of over 28,000. Public engagement informed a range of decisions throughout the planning process. Development policies were drafted in response to feedback regarding proposed land uses. Examples included the distribution of housing forms, including directing mixed uses towards commercial services and transportation options, and guidelines for townhouse design that included ground level living spaces fronting streets rather than garages. Transportation policies addressed input regarding anticipated traffic within the neighborhood and highway access. Policies were included to align with and implement findings of a traffic impact assessment. In addition, the plan included strong support for active transportation connectivity. Tree retention policy focused on input received during the process. The plan includes policy support for tree canopy preservation and enhancement. The plan also includes support for a potential park on a large development in the ground-oriented residential area. And supported land uses also reflect input regarding development opportunities. This includes increased permitted maximum densities along Diamond Head Road in response to landowner requests at stage 4, and the addition of townhouses as a use along Black Dusk Way as a request by landowners at stage 4. As noted, the plan was considered by council for first reading in December of 2024. Following first reading, staff addressed the direction of council to complete and integrate new information about flood hazard from the Masheter Creek Hazard Assessment. Staff updated the plan to reflect the updated flood construction levels identified. In addition, renderings of potential mixed-use developments along Diamond Head Road and road cross-sections were updated to reflect the flood hazard information. The updated plan was considered by Council in April 2025 and given second reading at that time, as noted. Staff formally referred the plan to Squamish Nation and the Tsleil-Waututh for referrals. Both nations thanked staff for the update without comment. Staff also consulted District 48, the School District 48, the SLRD, and BC Transit. The school district does not anticipate challenges associated with proposed growth. The SLRD noted strong alignment between the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood plan and SLRD policies. And BC Transit noted support for reduced parking requirements and higher densities and mixed use near planning transit services. The plan is presented tonight to residents for public hearing. Following the public hearing, Council may consider giving the bylaw third reading. Council has the option to adopt the bylaw at the same meeting. That is the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gunn. All right, so I will open tonight's public hearing with a quick statement so that everybody's clear on what's happening. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act, requirements to follow the public to present and to provide submissions to council respecting District of Squamish Official Community Plan Bylaw number 2500-2017, Amendment Bylaw, Garibaldi Estates Neighborhood Plan number 3135-2024. Everyone present will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard tonight. We want to ensure that no one is discouraged or prevented from making their views known, whether speaking in favor or against the proposed amendments. Therefore, I ask that members of the public maintain order and quiet during the hearing. Please do not applaud or interrupt any speech or action of members of council or any other person addressing council. Please ensure that your remarks are relevant to the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. This is not an opportunity for members of the public to have their questions answered by staff or by council. Any questions or points of clarification can be directed to staff by contacting the planning department. Council is here to listen and won't debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with the public or each other during the public hearing. Members of council may ask clarifying questions, and that will happen at this point following the presentation. Please note that this public hearing is being recorded and web streamed live, and the recording will be posted to the district website. Media may be present. I don't see anybody at this. Oh, media are here. You're advised that if you do not wish to have your picture taken by the media tonight, please let our media representative know that's your wish. Up to and as part of this hearing, the public has the opportunity to make submissions to council. If any submissions were received, they're available to review and have been included as part of the electronic agenda available on the district website. And I have confirmation that it is current. Everything that has been submitted is on the website. And at this point, council, I will turn to each of you to see if anybody has any questions for staff. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. First for staff, item number 29 in the section under active, I think it's under active transportation routes. I'll read it out just so we were clear. It is identify a mechanism to ensure incremental infill development across the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood contributes to a fund for anticipated road network improvements to ensure equitable cost sharing of infrastructure upgrades. It is a new idea, if you like, and I wonder if staff could elaborate on it to the extent that staff have given this some deeper thought as to where such a fund might fit in relative to current mechanisms to ensure equitable cost sharing and that we're keeping up with infrastructure needs. It just seemed to pop out at me as a new idea that perhaps might be perhaps even better identified as a new idea for further elaboration later. But perhaps staff could at this time offer any comment you may be prepared to better situate that new idea, if you like.
Thank you. Through the chair, we have, so that policy was actually drafted quite a while ago in the earlier stages of the planning process, and staff has continued to examine what those opportunities might be. We've had some discussion with experts in the field that could explain to us where the opportunities are for that type of cost sharing. What's become apparent is that the best and most appropriate tools are the tools that we are using right now, which are the DCCs. But there are some opportunities to create what are called area-specific DCCs. And for those people who are here, DCCs are development cost charges. They are fees that are paid for by builders, developers when they're building a new place in a community. They contribute money towards servicing upgrades. And so in those discussions, it appears that either the standard DCCs that we use, which cover, they're paid for and shared across the community, or these area-specific DCCs are the best tools. We haven't gone further down the road of contemplation of area-specific DCCs, nor have we brought this to council, but it is something that could be considered. Whether it's the most appropriate mechanism or not is unknown. It needs more examination, but it largely rests in the DCC sphere.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Chair, I do have another question, if I may. Under transit number 23, there is to support future ridership increases on the District of Squamish transit system, establish a transit exchange near the Garibaldi Village area. My question is, should that be included in the commercial core policy section? Are we going to lose track of it? Are we making by where it's listed under transit rather than under the area where this is inevitably going to be located? Are we going to be sure that developers and all of us together are going to take this into account? It should be highlighted more clearly in the commercial core policies is my question, that idea of a transit exchange. It seems like a significant, if you like, infrastructure initiative that needs a lot of collaboration and engineering, if you like.
Through the chair, thank you for that question. So there are policies in the document that drive new ideas or new initiatives. There are also policies in the document that link to existing projects or try to synchronize with things that the district is already working on. And so that policy there links to a project that's well underway. We have transportation staff and engineering that are working with BC Transit on the identification of a location for a transit exchange. Where that location, where that exchange ends up is something that needs to be determined as part of a separate process. It could land in the commercial area, but there is possibility that it could land in another area in the States. It needs to land somewhere in that area because that is one of the endpoints of our frequent transit network. But its exact location isn't determined yet, and it really will rely on a separate process that's underway with lots of work being done on it. We're really just providing a linkage to that from this document. And so where that policy lives in the document is not really going to change the outcome of that, and we certainly won't lose track of it. There's people working on it.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. I do have one more question, if I may, Chair. Under the section mixed-use residential C, which includes the Garibaldi Garden Court apartment blocks, we're all well aware of the challenges of the Tantalus and Garibaldi Way intersection. There's two proposals in the plan that one of them is highlighting this area as a potential area for rather large-scale childcare facilities. And there's also an emphasis on encouraging retail. And that's a new use for that particular development as we have it today, the Garibaldi Concourt. My question is, have staff thought through the implications there may be for traffic with having childcare facility, a larger one, and maybe even destination retail in that facility? Or would you suggest that a traffic plan might be undertaken should a development proposal come forward? How can we be sure that we're taking into account the risks for traffic in that area with those two new uses for that mixed-use residential C zone?
Thank you for that question. I think the layout of any proposed development in that location would have a large bearing on the exposure that both shoppers at commercial and any childcare attendees would face. So I think that's those are issues that would be dealt with at a more nuanced development scale. When we had an application come in, it would require rezoning, so that gives us broad latitude to require appropriate studies or investigations at that time. I think the level of detail needed to answer the question that you brought up, which is an important question, is something that's more appropriate at a stage when there's a specific project on hand. We don't know exactly what would happen there or whether it would have either of those uses that you've highlighted. They seem very appropriate. We want to encourage them, but to invest in a study and further detail at this point would be an expenditure of resources with uncertainty, and so I don't think it's the appropriate time to answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. And at this point, traditionally in our public hearings, we first like to invite officials from the Squamish Nation to comment on the proposed OCP amendment. So I'll just ask, is there anybody from the Squamish Nation who wishes to speak at tonight's public hearing? Seeing none, I have a speakers list, and I'll start with that. I'll call on any members of the public. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to address council. And I'll first call on speakers participating in person. Please raise your hand, wait to be recognized, and approach the podium. Or you also have the option of signing in at the back at the table. They are maintaining a speakers list there. We'll get the information as people add their names to the list. Okay. So simply approach the podium and introduce yourself. Tell us your name and tell us what neighborhood you live in, and then you'll have your 3 minutes to speak. The first person on our speakers list is Dennis Smith. Yes, thanks, Dennis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dennis Smith, and I am a proud resident of Garibaldi North, what we locals call the Pat Good Estates. Now, tonight, I stand before you not just myself, but for my neighbors, my family, voters in my community, and the entire community that calls this place home. Let me be very clear. I cannot support the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood plan in its current form. I'm not against progress or change. I am for responsible, thoughtful planning. I am for transparency. I am for real, meaningful community engagement. First, many of us feel that so-called engagement has been nothing more than really a box-ticking exercise. Residents have reported feeling unheard and ignored. When a community's concerns are brushed aside, it's not engagement. This plan feels less like a vision for our future and more like a decision that's been made behind closed doors. Second, this plan blatantly disregards existing restrictive covenants, legal agreements that protect our property rights and our neighborhood's character. Let's be clear. Bill 44 does not override these covenants. We know this. The province of BC, the Hansard record, the municipal guidelines have all confirmed that restrictive covenants are protected and must be decided by the courts, not by council or an administration. Yet the district is acting As if these covenants are obsolete without any legal ruling, this is not just a technical oversight, but is an erosion of the rule of law. Third, there is a misconception that Bill 44 will lead to affordable housing. The evidence simply is not there. Increasing density does not guarantee affordability, and in many cases, it leads to higher land values and more expensive homes. This is being felt in the city of Vancouver with over 1,000 condos sitting empty under the guise of Bill 44. It leads to higher land values and more expensive homes, not the attainable housing that this district has done a great job with the Squamish Housing Society in putting forward. But using Bill 44 as justification for this plan is misleading and does not address the real issue of affordability in our community. Fourth, the plan's one-size-fits-all approach threatens the very soul of our neighborhoods. Sweeping density and land use changes ignore the unique history, character, and needs of each area. Pat Good Estates is not just another block on a map. It is a living, breathing community with decades of shared history. Let me conclude that once it's lost, these things cannot be replaced. Finally, the risk of litigation is real and unnecessary. If the district continues to ignore restrictive covenants, residents are forced to protect their rights in court. This will waste public, precious, and private resources, money and time that could be better spent building stronger, more united, and a more affordable community to live in. This is not NIMBYism. This is about fundamental land rights, fundamental land title rights. This is about respecting the legal process and about being honest about what Bill 44 can and cannot achieve. So I urge this council this evening, let's pause. Let's listen. Let's work together. Let's create a plan that truly reflects the needs and rights of everyone who calls this place home.
Thank you, Dennis. A shade over 3 minutes, but you've got us off to a good start. And as I noted off the top, we would appreciate if you could maintain silence. We discourage applauding. The next person on the speaker's list is Donna McMurtry. You have 3 minutes to address council. Please start by telling us your name and the neighborhood you live in.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, councillors, staff, and neighbors. My name is Donna McMurtry, and I am a resident of the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood, and I also own a business in downtown Squamish. I have engaged in the Garibaldi Estates planning process from the beginning through surveys and in-person meetings, and I've heard a lot of concerns from my neighbors regarding the rezoning and ultimate redevelopment of Garibaldi Estates. Much of that concern was very thoughtful and valid, but often it felt like the concerns of the current residents were dismissed as entitled or that it was a case of NIMBYism. This is not what I heard. I heard residents concerned about a complete reimagining of Garibaldi Estates neighborhood and how it will affect everyone who visits the neighborhood. For my limited time tonight, I would like to address one aspect of that, and it's that's traffic and active transportation. According to the Garibaldi Estates Neighbourhood Planning Report, ISL was engaged to do a traffic study to determine traffic impacts of increased density and traffic of the neighbourhood. They found that an increase of 3,500 housing units would cause the intersections at Garibaldi Way and Highway 99 and Mamcram Road and Highway 99 would fail. I would say that at certain times of the day, those intersections fail now. Garibaldi Way from Highway 99 to Tantalus Road had an intersection improvement recently. This narrowed the roadway for the benefit of a raised multi-purpose pathway on the south side of Garibaldi Way. As an active cyclist, I will never use this pathway as the sightlines are horrible and the drivers trying to get onto Garibaldi Way from the independent parking lot are not looking for cyclists, but instead looking for the hole shot between cars to get onto the road. The pathway is dangerous and an accident waiting to happen. Instead, I ride my bike on the road, and I truly feel like I'm running the gauntlet and actively trying to avoid getting hit by cars as they access or leave the businesses along the stretch of road. It is only a matter of time before there is a serious accident. If I ride my bike the other way and use Mamcram Road to approach the highway, the bike lane ends at Diamond Head Road, and then I have to try to cross the road. Or my other option is to cross Mamcram earlier and ride the wrong way in the bike lane, and I encounter walkers and pedestrians and people with strollers. This is a shared pathway and there's often conflict. Sharing the path with dog walkers and parents with strollers is an accident waiting to happen. These situations are happening now. If this plan is passed as written, and council will effectively increase these conflicts exponentially. There will be accidents. It is also worth considering Squamish is often a rainy place and weather is not conducive to riding to work or to do errands. It is snowy and icy here for part of the year, making riding unsafe. And there's no place to lock up a bike. I locked up my bike to a railing tonight to come here. There's no way to, and I had 2 locks. Bike theft is real and we need to consider it. Squamish is growing really quickly. There are many developments that have been approved that are yet to be built and occupied. It is one thing to think academically about how 100, 1,000, or 10,000 more people to a town looks like, but the lived experience is different. Most of us moved to Squamish for the lifestyle, for the beauty of the wild spaces and easy access to the forest, the mountains, the lakes, and the ocean. What makes Squamish special is a finite resource. It is ephemeral. By continuing to develop at breakneck speed, we lose sight of this, and instead we enrich developers while we cut the trees down, pave the land, and lose the essence of what makes this home. I urge council to reject this plan as written and reconsider a plan that is less dense and maintains the character of the existing neighborhood. Please be realistic in your planning and listen to the concerns of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before we go to Susan Berry, if you want to make your way up, we have a bit of a timing system here that we haven't been using very well, but we will sharpen up. The yellow is going to indicate that you have 1 minute left. And when we flash the red, that means your 3 minutes is up. Go ahead. Just let us know your name and the address or the neighborhood you live in, please.
I'm ready for my close-up. Mayor and council, as unaccustomed as I am to speaking, I am really choked, to put it mildly.
Can we have your name and the neighborhood you live in, please?
It's Susan Berry. I live at the corner of Diamond Head and Diamond. I will echo everyone else who's spoken and probably everyone who is yet to speak in saying that I really feel ignored. And I feel like nobody cares about the residents who are already here. And I mean, I've been paying taxes on that piece of property for nearly 34 years. And before that, I paid taxes in Valley Cliff. And I get to see my taxes used to dig up the sewer lines on Diamond Head Road roughly every summer for the last 5 or 6 years because of all the multi-dwellings in the neighborhood. There was a bed and breakfast that was legally, according to the district, allowed to have 2 bedrooms for bed and breakfast. They regularly had busloads dropping people off. And so I called them. And they got a call back eventually saying that the family was going to be in compliance. Well, guess what? It never happened. And now they've been renting out the house to a group of possibly 10 or higher young people who live there, park on Culloden and park on Diamond Head Road. And with all the digging up of the sewer lines, that's added to the traffic problems. They dug up the sewer lines in front of my house on the Diamond Road side, and it resulted in a backwash into the lines that were going through my property, which resulted in a breakage. And I had to pay, aside from my taxes, I had to pay to have the lines all fixed and for a plumber to come in. It would have been a hell of a lot more if my husband had not given free rent for all the equipment they used. I'm sick of this. I'm just absolutely sick of it. The streets around there are single lane traffic because of all the parked up cars. And nobody has plans for improved infrastructure. Nobody has plans for increased sewer or parking. And I guess my time's up.
You still have 20 seconds. For the those who feel 3 minutes isn't long enough, there is the opportunity to speak again once we've heard from all those who want to speak a first time. So if you do find that 3 minutes is not enough, don't worry. We'll let you get your entire comments in after we've heard from everybody that's on the speakers list initially. So next I have Carl Ingram, and Carl will be followed by Mark Andre. You've got 3 minutes to address council, and just let us know your name and the address you live in, please.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Carl Ingram. I've got 15 years on Culloden Road, 25 on Thunderbird, and 29 in Dentville. Long time. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Acting Mayor, Council, staff. Who wrote this? This whole process, this whole project is being pushed by Ottawa and Victoria. It seems like against foes such as those, resistance is futile for those of us that are at ground level. The area in question was built in the 50s and the 60s using the technology and the specifications of the day. So, number one, first of all, the previous speakers have hit my points very well. First item is streetlights. Streetlights in that part of town are few and far between. It's dark. Squamish is prone to dark, rainy nights, and it's dark. If we add more traffic, it's there's a danger there. Battery electric vehicles are becoming more prevalent. The infrastructure needs to catch up, as does the other infrastructures. Finally, is to Ms. Berry's point, is parking. I live on that section of Culloden, and I can certainly attest that the parking is an issue, and no one seems to care. Please, if developers come and they want variances to reduce the amount of parking, please don't let that happen. Please hold them to the feet to the fire as far as parking on property goes. People in Squamish have and use cars. The whole transit initiative is noble, but cars exist and they're going to. Everything else that I want to say has been covered by the people ahead of me. We're at ground level, and it's very frustrating to see our way of life being pushed aside. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mark Andre Gagnon, and we'll follow him with Lyle Fenton. And Mark Andre, just a reminder, please confirm your name and the address you live in, and then you have 3 minutes.
My name is Marc Andre Gagnon. Address? Really?
Or neighborhood is fine.
Garibaldi Estates North. So I'm going to start by saying that I'm pretty disappointed with the turnout of this neighborhood planning process. First, public engagement. After stage 3 public engagement, the survey results clearly showed that the majority of respondents have voted for either not liking any options, scenario A or scenario B. And regardless of that, the staff has recommended proceeding with a higher density scenario. In the stage 3 report, the precise numbers of people that are not in favor of densification are clearly laid out. And in the stage 4 draft plan, a series of lots in the estates north were suddenly updated to accommodate townhouses based on, quote, requests from several landowners in the area. But we don't have any numbers of how many residents voiced that. So when you're in a position to densification, the plan does not consider it. But when you're in favor, the plans gets updated without presenting any data to support it. So this shows a lack of transparency and ethics. So if there's one thing that this process has succeeded in, it's making people lose faith in the value of public engagement. Second, the vision. The vision is based on a series of guiding principles that are basic general urban planning principles that should be applied in any cities or neighborhood in general. Nothing is specific to our neighborhood, and I don't see any clear vision. For example, The planning process highlighted the importance of character. For that, a heritage study was conducted to identify the neighborhood's character, natural features, etc. Nothing in the proposed plan reflects any of that. We use taxpayers' money for that study, so we need to have it reflected in the plan. Finally, the policies that support some of those guiding principles are vague and weak. They should be more robust and specific. For example, neighborhood designs. We should have mandatory advisory design panel and DPA requirements with an emphasis on character, design criteria based on a definition of the general aesthetics that the community agrees on. Parks, green space, and trees. We need to prioritize preserving mature trees and adapt development projects accordingly to protect the tree's health. Right now, what we see is if a project's viability, financial viability is affected by a tree, the tree's going to get cut down and we'll move on. So are we really prioritizing the protection of canopy here? I don't think so. Finally, fruit production. Growing food needs sun. Building upwards for densification will provide shade. So policy, example of policy, shade studies should be provided for every new proposed development to see if the new shade will affect the neighborhood's property food production. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Lyle Fenton, followed by Mike Bosa. So Lyle, if you could just confirm your name and let us know the neighborhood you live in, please.
You got my name right. It's Lyle Fenton, and I'm on Diamond Head Road. I'm neighbor to the Anglican Church in London Drugs. I wasn't going to speak tonight because I've been through the process. And after staff gave their presentation, the mayor stood up and said, well, I didn't like the process. In spite of the fact he guaranteed us when we started, it was going to be paid attention to and it was legitimate. So he put on motion to change what staff had presented. So I'm not here to speak against this, but I'm here to say if you do it right. Okay, and I have raised an issue throughout this process about transportation, and I agree with all the people here who have spoke on it. When I was on council, but stepped out in a conflict of interest, the Garibaldi Village went in, we hired a traffic engineer to do a traffic study to look at the future to make sure we weren't interfering with what had to be done later. Keep the cost down for future citizens, like your kids, my kids, grandkids, okay? No, it wasn't, so it was okay. But that traffic study laid out what was going to be needed for traffic corridors as the community develops. Now, Councillor French, Councillor Anderson, you've been here a long time. So have I. And my mother grew up here, and I would like my grandkids to grow up here. And if you don't plan for your transportation corridors for the exponential growth that's taken place here, and it goes faster and faster, then there's going to have to be some very expensive expropriation to accommodate it, even if everybody's on a bike. You've got to have maintenance vehicles, supply vehicles, transit vehicles going back and forth, okay? And as much as I give credit to what the planning department has done in the intersections, it's almost temporary. I won't go into a lot of detail. That report is still, should be on the books. It was probably about 1997, okay? That, I never got an answer to that. Okay, so that's affordability. Councillor Anderson's talked to the planner about it to start with and said, well, we're going to put some money aside. How the heck are you going to project what that land's going to be worth 20 years down the road when you need to put that corridor in? Look what's happened in Vancouver, where they put in the corridors and the small businesses that are hurting everything. Planning is for the future to eliminate problems. That hasn't been done here, I don't believe, because the future will go into lands beyond this. I won't go into details of the study. That's up to you. I doubt if planning has dug it out and give it to you. But I really think that needs to be considered. Like I say, no sense going against this. It's a done deal. But do it right. Don't give the burden of the cost down the road to some other councillors, because that's out of your term. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mike Bosa, followed by Marie-Louise Towers.
Hi, I'm Mike Boza, Properties 2227 Reed Crescent. I hear everyone's comments and I respect everyone's opinion. I'm here to provide you with a different perspective as a builder developer. I was at City Hall today paying taxes, and 4 people in front, every single person in front of me said, why have the taxes gone up? Have the taxes gone up? Part of the issues that we have in Squamish is the infrastructure needs to be upgraded. There's costs. Clearly, infrastructure needs to be upgraded, as has been mentioned, and there's a financial burden. Without growth, you know, I would like to hear what the tax difference would be, current versus future. You know, restricted covenants. Not all parcels have restricted covenants. There's comments about development as a developer getting higher density. The density that was originally on our property has actually gone down based on the input from the community. There's also a long range of different housing types, which is important. You know, we've built over 200,000 square feet of industrial in Squamish. Every person that we rent to, other than a handful, are all local young people that we take a big chance on when we accept them as a tenant. Also, our homes that we built, the average age is 28 to 35 years old that we provide. So we're bringing new people that need homes, and for them it comes down to affordability and price. Houses, an old rundown house, if it's rented in that area, is over $5,000. So there's a lot of underutilized properties. There's also communities that, you know, there's change if the people that own the properties want to sell them. There's also communities and beautiful streets, and they may never be changed because the homeowners don't want to change. But I'm just providing a different perspective, and taxes are important. The infrastructure needs to be redone. That's all covered through DCCs. It's only paid through development, or taxes will continue to go up. Our tenants pay taxes in our business park, and again, they're the ones that pay the taxes. So it's a different perspective. I appreciate everyone's concern. So I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Mary Louise Towers, and I think that takes us to the end of the speakers list as we have it. So if you do wish to add your name to the speakers list, you can just go to the back table and they'll get your name on the list. Go ahead. Just a reminder, please introduce yourself and the neighborhood you live in. You've got 3 minutes.
Okay. Can you hear me? Because I'm told I'm a soft speaker. My name is Marie Louise Towers. I live in Brackendale, but I did have the benefit of living in the Garibaldi estates during my teenage and early 20s years. I have a mother, brother, and sister who live in the neighborhood. And I just want to also share some perspective from my family. I'm lucky that in my mid-20s, I was able to buy my first home, and it was affordable. We live in a very different time now. My mother has lived in the Garibaldi estates for 35 years, and it's my opinion that it's one of the loveliest spots to live in Squamish. So I do understand the desire of many residents in that area to not see densification. However, I have teenagers, and I hope that someday they will get to live in Squamish as adults and have grandchildren here, and that our family will continue to prosper here. And with the way housing affordability is, that's not going to happen. So I do want to just say too that some of the other reality is that we have elderly residents living in the area, like my mother and some other friends' parents, who don't have the energy or the gumption or the finances to pay for renovations, and the houses are starting to suffer for that. There's lots of homes that have sinking foundations. So I just do support the district's OCP plans that have been in place, to my knowledge, for over 18 years. And I base that on the age of my child, because I knew about it before she was born. That the district has always had in the OCP that they would densify that neighborhood because of its proximity to the commercial areas, to the centrality that it has to the town. And I do want to see that move forward. This planning process has taken 3 to 4 years, and it's time for it to move forward. One thing like, I just want to acknowledge that there has been a lot of effort on behalf of the residents and the staff to come up with some solutions. And I do think that there are some solutions in the plan. It may not be perfect, but it's the first step, I guess. The other thing that I wanted to just say was, and this is more of an overall, but please stop allowing parking variances in any neighborhoods, because the plans are there for a reason and it's hurting the traffic and livability of the town with all the parking variances that have gone through. So that's one other perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. So that does take us to the end of the speakers list. And at this point, I'll just check with my council colleagues. Has what we've heard prompted any questions from council? Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, one of the folks who was speaking in one of the written submissions speaks to trying to find more specificity in the policies as presented in the draft plan, in particular around protection of mature trees and shade studies. I believe that these are things that we typically require of different parts of either our bylaws or development permit applications. I'm just wondering if staff can clarify when we would actually seek details on those types of things, in particular tree management and shade studies.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. So there's a couple elements that we can speak to there. I think I'll start by just talking about holistically the tree preservation across the estates and how we anticipate doing that. One thing I'll note is that the largest collection of mature trees tend to sit at the rear of the large VLA properties. These are the older half-acre properties that are north of Mamquam Road. And roads run north-south off of Mamquam with these large properties that back onto each other. And there's a lot of mature trees at the backs of those properties. As part of our attempt to, because tree preservation came out very strong in the discussion with the community as something that was really important to maintain that character. It came up in the discussion around the heritage of the area. And so we recognize that as a key piece. So the real, in that area, the real change in land use beyond what the province has mandated with Bill 44, where multiplexes are now allowed, the real change that the land use plan provides is the opportunity to have townhouses in those areas. And so we spent a bunch of time trying to come up with designs for townhouses that could allow an appropriate amount of density, but still allow preservation of the trees that are along the back end of those properties that tend to back onto each other. And so what the plan stipulates is that the open space requirements for townhouse development gets pushed to the back of properties. And if you have townhouse developments that happen along the roads and backed onto each other, we'll end up getting preserved land at the back of those properties that face each other where the preserved trees are. And we have policy around using that land to support those preserved trees. So the biggest collection of the mature trees should be supported by the guidelines we have to develop townhouses. Other pieces related to your specific question around shade studies, and I think we can have answered by my colleague.
Thank you. Jonas Wilniškis, Senior Director of Community Development. So we do look at shade studies either through the rezoning process, or if there is no rezoning process, that can also happen through development permit process, which a multifamily project above 4 units or above a fourplex would have to go through. The district, generally speaking, is also our work plan includes doing an urban forest management strategy in the next couple of years, which will look at tree protection in terms of whether we need to make improvements generally across the community. And then we have the tree management bylaw, of course, that deals with site-specific. Once you go through the development permitting process, you then go into kind of technical site-specific process for tree management.
Council, any other questions? Okay, Mayor Herford and then Councillor Pettingill.
Thank you. Just following up on this tree topic, that approach that was described with the big trees across the back of the properties and so on, is that how does that differ from the regulations we have in the rest of the community? Like how does what's in the plan reflect that situation? Is it just the higher the FAR number that means that much will be left behind, or can you go into a little bit more detail there, please?
Through the chair, yeah, absolutely. The difference is that the plan has policies that will specifically guide site planning, which are drafted to reflect the character of the existing lots, their orientation, and the location of the mature trees, the largest proportion of mature trees. So we specifically can see that a big proportion of those trees are along the rear of lot lines, and the policies speak specifically to pushing the open space, which in a general townhouse development can be located wherever the applicant wants to place them. This has specific policy that says, or guidelines that say, though that space should be pushed to the rear where those large trees are. So in a discussion with an applicant who is doing a townhouse design, we can say, okay, you're laying out some townhouses. Well, here's the design in general that we think is an appropriate design to orient houses or the townhouse units towards the street, so you have an attractive frontage, still have a number of units that supports the development, and then pushes the open space to the rear where those large trees generally are to help preserve those. So it's got tuned policies for the nature of the area and the location of in general, the location of the trees.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question is around we've heard some concerns in the comments so far around, I mean, traffic generally, but specifically the intersections with the highway. Can you speak to the involvement of the province, of course, who's regulates and makes those investments on the highway? Just how has that been handled throughout this process?
Thank you. Through the chair. So early on in the process, the intersections on the highway were identified as something that we wanted to take a strong look at and consider how development would impact those. We initiated a traffic study. We took a kind of a broad guess at what could happen over a development or a infill situation in the neighborhood, made some projections and put it into a traffic study to see at what level of density you would get failure in those intersections, and then specifically to identify upgrades that could be used to mitigate intersection failure. And when we say an intersection failure, we say refers to waits that are longer than acceptable. Once we had identified through that study the upgrades that would be required to mitigate those impacts or those intersection failures, we engaged with the province and met with them and said, here's a place that we want to support some infill over time through a neighborhood planning process, in line with provincial direction. We see that there's going to be upgrades required in these intersections. What's involved in us trying to get these addressed over time. And we've had a couple of meetings with the Ministry of Transportation on that. They've laid out what they indicate is the process to go through to work with the province towards addressing or having those upgrades implemented. They've said, the steps are you need to, look at it at this in an OCP, do studies and identify the problem, engage with us on that issue. And also, they said one of the steps is to start allocating money in DCCs towards a project that could contribute so that you're cost sharing with the ministry. And so every one of those steps we are either in the process of or discussing how that would happen. So we've got some of these upgrades. I think they're contemplated in the DCC. I'd have to speak to engineering to confirm that, but I believe some of them, there's some cost sharing that's proposed to be gathered for these upgrades that then the Ministry of Transportation could contribute to. We've gone through the process in this project, identifying it as part of the OCP. And we're engaging with them on ongoing basis. So we're in a discussion with the Ministry of Transportation, and I think we're not at a point where those intersections are failing, from their standpoint. So that discussion will be ongoing as infill occurs in the community. And it's possible that some larger projects that could happen, redevelopments in the area, could actually contribute funds that could help move us closer towards some of those upgrades.
Thank you for that. That's helpful.
Councillor Pettingill. Oh, you're good. Okay. Council, just one last check-in. Anybody else with questions for staff? Okay. Is there anybody that would like to speak? Okay, so Mr. Fenton has indicated, because you've spoken once, I acknowledge you're on the list. Mr. O'Rourke, go ahead. Just introduce yourself, please, and the neighborhood you live in. You have 3 minutes to share with council.
Hi there, my name's Michael Ord. I don't live in the neighborhood, but I own a property in the neighborhood. I purchased the property in 2018, I believe. My family has lived in Squamish since 1972. I grew up in the Garibaldi Highlands area. I just wanted to share a couple thoughts and points given my history in Squamish. One, the lots in the Garibaldi estates were subdivided before the road was actually paved between Vancouver and Squamish. It was a dirt road, and that's when these lots were originally created. They were created for veterans coming back from the war. In a conversation with my father, who still lives on Kintyre Drive in the Garibaldi Highlands, he is not aware of a veteran who lives in the area or even benefits from that covenant of the VAL. I don't even know if it's still in there. That's one of my comments. So in short, this subdivision was established before you even had a paved road into the community. Times have changed significantly since then. You could argue that Vancouver was probably half the size at that point. So there's a lot of pressures from Vancouver. People are interested in moving into Squamish because Vancouver is busy. Another point I'd like to make is my parents are in their 80s. I have been encouraging them to downsize on multiple occasions over multiple years. They're mobily challenged. If they had an option in an area like the Garibaldi Estates, they would have a more active lifestyle, being able to walk to and from the grocery store. I've walked this neighborhood hundreds of times, having gone to Mampom Elementary when I was younger. I know the area extremely well. I know a lot of families who have lived there, who have moved on, and it is a really great area. So just having a variety of homes, not just in the downtown, but outside of the downtown, I think it's quite appealing for seniors. I also want to note that I have 4 kids, and I look at options for where they're going to live. Squamish is an excellent option. One house in the estates is probably worth more than $2 million. That is equivalent to basically, if you sold that property, you could basically help your kids buy at least 2 houses, maybe 3 houses, and get them on the right foot, and they could all stay in Squamish. And I am a big fan of Squamish. I always will be a big fan of Squamish. And I look forward to being around town for as long as I can. So I am in support of this program, and I wish everyone good luck.
Thank you. For your hand from earlier. Yep. And I have Mac McDowell. So Mac, if you get ready to be next.
That is me.
That's you. Okay, very good. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes to share with council and just confirm your name and the neighborhood you live in, please.
Hello, council. My name is Mac McDowell. I live in the Ravenswood neighborhood. I wasn't going to say anything until you guys started talking about transportation and how it's going to be really easy to work with Modi on this. And as a person who's moved into a new neighborhood, so now our neighborhood deals with traffic, getting into Squamish town, downtown. And I've been trying to work with this council and the town for, I think, about 15 months now to get the one traffic light that's at Loggers Lane to get increased from 4 seconds to use it, to get across the highway. It's literally 4 seconds. Goes green, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's red. Imagine taking your kids across to go to school, perhaps to Mamquam Elementary or something like that. So I find it really strange listening to Mr. Gunn saying, oh yeah, we've talked to Modi, they're all for it, they're going to put in some time and money. But then I've talked to Mr. Herford about this, who has said to me, talking to Modi is impossible. We can never get anything from Modi. I've talked to Chris. Oh yeah, Modi is really difficult to deal with. We can't get anything changed at Mamquam Road. But then suddenly, magically, all these guys are telling you, it's not going to be a problem. We'll give them some money, they'll just do it. I am shocked that you guys are trying to pass off that working with Ministry of Transportation is going to be a simple process. You have had me come to your meetings, ask you about fixing one traffic light, increase the time on the traffic light from 4 seconds to a crazy amount like 6 seconds. 18 months. I have 7 emails I just checked with your Ministry of Transport advocate who tells me it's impossible. There are far more pressing issues. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Yeah, your hand at the back there. And Lyle, you're still on the list. I have a few people that haven't spoken yet. I'll get to them. Okay, thank you for your patience. Just a reminder, we need to confirm your name and the neighborhood you live in. You have 3 minutes to share.
My name's Rod Castellanos. I live in Garibaldi Estates North. I wasn't going to say anything, but some of the points I thought were a little off, especially around things like transportation. And you talk about the access points in and around the estates right now. If you're coming down and trying to get on the highway, either from Mamquam or from Garibaldi Way, 8:30, 9 o'clock, you're already seeing heavy traffic. So the wait times trying to get onto the highway right now are already frustrating at times. Trying on the weekend, it gets even worse trying to come in and out of Garibaldi Village. If you want to start adding, I don't know, what are you talking about, 1,000, 2,000 people into this area with vehicles, which they're all going to have, that's just going to create a huge mess, in my opinion. I moved to Squamish in 2009. We live downtown in a BOSA property, no offense, but if you know the area around behind Save-On, that's just becoming now an extended parking lot. So nobody's parking in the actual units because everybody's got their toys, which occupy their garage and everything else. So the expectation now that you're going to have additional individuals that are going to have additional cars and additional toys, unless you're really accommodating for excessive parking, which I doubt you are, I'm going to expect that that's either going to overflow onto the roads or into the parking lot of the mall, which is just going to annoy more and more people. You talk about transportation and public transportation, which I'm all for. I wish we had more, but we went through a transportation strike in this town where people couldn't get around for, 18 months. So if you're relying on public transportation, I think the council better do a better job at actually advocating and ensuring that it's actually reliable. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw a hand at the back there. Did I? If I didn't, I'll call on Lyle Fenton to come for a second time.
The flood hazard management plan, I was a little wondering, puzzled about it. Because if I understand it correctly, and thank you to Mr. Gunn passed it on to me, what you've figured out is how high you have to build the new buildings so when it floods, they won't get flooded. And I find that a bit strange as opposed to looking at upgrading the dikes on the Masheter Creek and the Mamcombe by the golf course. It would seem to me that would be a better solution. In other words, the existing properties can get flooded, keeping in mind, if it comes through there, it's trapped behind the dike. And the large amount of material just north of the Mamcombe Bridge that's on the dike was there to put over the road in the event that the Mamcombe River came up so high that it would come down the highway and flood in the estates area. So there's an interesting scenario that if rivers get that high, and we know our climate events now are extreme, that it would seem more appropriate to try and prevent rather than just say, well, we'll have them build up high enough they won't get flooded. And a further comment to the traffic. I saw that study that was come out in 97 about, and the Ministry of Highways said the highway is designed to get traffic north-south between communities. It's not designed and not intended to be a back and forth road in the community. And they don't want to put traffic lights on it. They don't want to impede that traffic. And again, for those of you who have been here long enough, that didn't exist when I moved into the neighborhood, that highway. Look at it now. And they're not going to let you impede traffic on that highway. That before the Garibaldi Village and the Legion all went in, there should have been clover leaves or something put in my view. Or when the Olympics went in, follow the old Merlin Ring Railroad grade in front of the Chief through Valley Cliff. And the railroad grade went all the way through to Cat Lake and Brome Lake. And railroads don't do steep hills. But of course, no. Anyway, yeah, I don't know about the flood thing. That seems odd to me. Should have got wood fiber LNG to raise all our dikes 6 feet. They're contributing to global warming through their carbon footprint. They're contributing. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Gagne.
Just want to make sure that council is not misled by some answers we got on the tree item here. But when I'm reading the point six environment, and I look at the objectives, when I was talking about weakness in policies, when I see wording such as encourage, and to encourage, or I don't see a lot of strong words specifically stating that trees should be protected. And I also have a hard time understanding that when we refer to large trees in the neighborhood, we're always referring to that big cluster of trees in that specific zone that Matt is talking about, because there are more trees in the neighborhood than in just that specific zone. So how is the policy targeting the other lots with mature trees? And one example I want to give about that is because of the provincial regulation and the Squamish Housing Action Plan, it seems like the densification is kind of being able to bypass all these policies in the favor of development. So for example, the project application at the end of Park Crescent, there's a big tree there. No considerations were made or would be made to protect that tree. So if you have a reduced setback up to 5 feet away from the property line and the root system of a mature tree is within that margin, if you excavate to build your foundations, you're going to affect the survival of the tree. So how do we address that situation when the provincial regulations seems to be stronger than our policies? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, I'm going to give one more opportunity to check in to see if anybody has any questions at this point. And Councillor Greenlaw, to just one quick moment. Folks, I think we're getting to the point where once I go through this round of questions with council, I'll start into the process of wrapping up the public hearing. Councillor Greenlaw.
Thanks. Through the chair, one of the speakers earlier mentioned some legal risk regarding the existing covenants that exist on some of these properties, and I was just wondering if staff could speak to that.
Okay.
Do you want me to rephrase that?
Yes. Well, Councillor Greenlaw, let me address your question at this point, and then I'll check in with staff to see if they have anything further beyond what I have to say. So the matter is before the courts, and council can't speculate on the outcome of a specific case. Municipal authority is focused on land use policy and zoning based on community needs. The purpose of today's public hearing is to provide an opportunity for the community to comment on proposed policy change that'll impact the entire neighborhood. It's not an opportunity for comment related to private covenants on specific parcels of land. So we're just looking to ensure that comments are related to the policy being considered, and that would also include our staff. Mr. Gunn, I'll turn to you. Is there anything that you wish to add related to the statement and Councillor Greenlaw's question?
Thank you, Chair. No, I think your statement covered any thoughts that I would have on the matter.
Council, any other questions? Okay. So at this point, I think we have exhausted our speaker list, but if there are no further speakers, I will ask, oh, I've already done that. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. Come on up to the podium, please. A reminder that we need to know your name and the neighborhood you live in, and you have 3 minutes to share with council.
Hi, my name is Kim Fussell. I live in the Estates. I guess, again, I wasn't going to speak today, but what I'm hearing a lot is there's a lot with respect to tree coverage and traffic and transportation. It's very vague in the plan. And I think that is everyone's biggest concern. Without firm mechanisms in the plan to say unless to protect the tree coverage, to ensure that traffic doesn't get out of control. And I think everybody here would say it already feels bananas. It already feels totally out of control. I don't know what the definition is for a failure, but yeah, there are certain times of the day when it feels like you're waiting 3-4 lights to get out of the highway, you're running late for appointments. So without mechanisms to ensure that these things are not going to further get away from us, I just, it's too vague, and I don't really know how it can be supported at this point.
Thank you. Come on up. And a reminder, we just need to know your name, the neighborhood you live in, and you have 3 minutes to share with council.
Hi, my name is Ian Dunn. I live in the Garibaldi Estates. I've lived in Squamish since 2007, and I own a small business here. I just wanted to add on to what the last speaker said. Again, I wasn't planning to say anything, but I feel like it should be said. I don't feel like I'm against this proposal as it currently sits. I'm not against density. I don't feel like a lot of the speakers who've spoken against it are against it as well. I feel like the problem is in the plan. And I just wanted to enter into, I guess, the record, whatever, the notes from your guys' own studies that said that the majority of the residents are opposed to the way the plan currently is and don't trust the current planning department, which I think speaks to the fact that the plan is not a good enough plan yet. And if you improve the plan, you might find that you would get more support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Now that everyone has been given a reasonable opportunity to be heard, it's a requirement that I ask 3 times if there's anyone else who wishes to speak before we close the public hearing. So for the first time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? And for a second time, is there anybody else who would like to speak or make a submission? Third and final time, is there anyone who would like to speak? this evening before I close the public hearing? Very good. I declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much for your submissions. And please note, council members are not permitted to receive any further submissions once the public hearing has been concluded. This means we can't speak to you out in the community or receive emails or telephone calls on any of this bylaw until a decision on the bylaw has been made. All communication from this point must be channeled to staff. And at this point, council, it takes us to item 5 on our agenda, bylaws. And if council wishes, we can move to third reading of District of Squamish Official Community Plan Bylaw number 2500, 2017, Amendment Bylaw, Garibaldi Estates Neighborhood Plan number 3135, 2024. Council, I'll just check in. We've been at this now for almost an hour and a half. Is there a desire to take a 10-minute break until 7:30? Very good. We'll recess until 7:30 and continue with our agenda at that time. Thank you. Bring the meeting back to order. And our live stream is back up and active again. So we require quiet. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us that break. And council, that does bring us to item 5 of the agenda, consideration of third reading. We do have a staff recommendation in front of us. I'm checking in. Council, what's the pleasure? Councillor Stoner? Councillor Stoner, you're moving the staff recommendation? And Councillor Hamilton, you're seconding that? Okay, very good. Councillor Stoner, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I moved third reading this evening as proposed by staff. I want to thank everybody who has come out tonight, those who are not represented here this evening, who have spent many years engaged in this process. Through the countless pages of correspondence, this evening's package was over 1,700 pages of correspondence, previous staff reports. The amount of effort and time that our community has put into this project has been substantial. I hear the frustration, I hear the concerns, I hear the distress, and most of all, I hear the sadness. Sadness about growth, change that feels a bit scary, a bit big, and a little bit out of our control. That sadness is coming out as frustration, as anger, as criticism of the process. And I do hear that, and I hope that you hear me when I say that my support for this plan is not intended to dismiss your concerns here tonight or those that have been written in. I was elected by all types of folks in this community, some in this room, probably not all that many of you because I held the same stance when I ran for council in the last election. But I was elected, and I don't only represent those who were elected me, I represent everybody in this community to hold the big picture of our vision, of our goals, of our community, and how we move those forward. And that is well for me defined in our official community plan that was supported by our community and the council at the time in 2018. In that plan in particular, there is extremely strong policy that supports the direction that has been laid out in the Garibaldi Estates Neighbourhood Plan. It is not a perfect plan, I will admit to that. It has a lot of trade-offs in it. It does not represent or address all of the concerns that have been laid out through the process on both sides of the debate. But it does support some of the things that I personally think are important to both our community here today and the community that I think that I want my children and my grandchildren to grow up in. Somewhere where they can call home, somewhere that they can feel connected, somewhere that is livable, and somewhere that is affordable to them. Housing for me is one of the biggest drivers in this plan, delivering more housing in more forms and diverse forms for our community. I've heard many criticisms that this will not be affordable housing. And yes, it may not all meet the definition of 30% below market rental that we use typically as affordable housing. Some of it will, because we'll secure that using other forms of policy that we have, like our community amenity contribution and our perpetually affordable housing policy. And hopefully our community housing society, Housing Squamish, will be able to benefit from some of the policies that are outlaid here that would allow us to build more affordable, deeply affordable housing. But definitely more of the housing will be attainable to more people over time. And as someone who worked in the housing sector for a very long time recently told me, we need all of it. We need all the housing we can get, whether it's market, non-market, for sale, rental, co-housing. And that's what this plan delivers, at least a vision for it. It isn't perfect. It doesn't provide all the details that folks are looking for. It will take time to come to fruition, similar to our official community plan. It is piecemeal, and that's hard to sit in. But that is also part of what growth is. I often say that Squamish is kind of in our adolescence years where we've grown really tall, but we haven't filled out yet. And this is another piece of that. There's going to be more growth in this community, and it'll take time for it to fill out. That is hard, though, especially when it is your backyard. And so I want to recognize the pain that that might cause for some folks. I also hope that it means that we can be open and embrace those who might call it home in the future, because there's many, many folks who want to call this place home. Thanks.
Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah, thanks very much. I'll also be speaking in support of third reading of the Garibaldi Estates Neighbourhood Plan. Change happens, and we need to plan for it. Squamish is an amazing place to live, and people have figured that out. There is an enormous demand to live in Squamish from all corners of BC, Canada, and abroad. Those population pressures, the fact that Squamish is such an amazing place to live, is a double-edged sword. When we live here, we get to benefit from all the amazing things that we can do here in Squamish. Think about why you live here. Take a moment to think of all the things that you're grateful for here in Squamish, and how many people would be grateful to have that same access. That's what's causing this the population pressure. And as a council, we have a couple ways. We have a few ways we can deal with it. We can try to ignore it. We can pretend it's not there. And we know that that's going to continue to cause escalating affordability challenges and reduced availability. We could sprawl beyond our growth management boundary, removing many of the forests that we appreciate being here for, putting those things further away from our homes. Or we can densify. We can densify the land that we already inhabit. We can use the land we've already disturbed more efficiently, more effectively. And the hard part is, those are your homes. That's hard to see. That's hard to accept. That's hard for everybody. That's not the vision is not to disrupt, but to accept that change happens and we need to make difficult decisions to accommodate it. We may need to grow beyond our growth management boundary at some point. But right now we have the ability to densify, to become a more livable, more connected, more walkable, more transit-friendly community by densifying. And like Councillor Stoner said, I agree, this plan is not perfect. But it's a plan with a lot of uncertainty. We don't control what a developer proposes when they put forward. We don't control a lot of what happens in this plan. And
Councillor,
time?
You're at your 3 minutes. You can wrap up.
Thank you very much. We don't control a lot of what's going to happen because a lot is in the control of individual property owners like yourselves and developers. And so to go into the level of detail that many people might hope to see in this plan may be an exercise in futility. So I look forward to seeing this plan evolve and get better over time. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Greenlaw?
Thanks. Through the chair, I won't be supporting the motion on the floor. One of the speakers earlier today referred to one of our previous meetings where we received the public feedback indicating that the vast majority of people responded that the top option was effectively no change. And the majority of the public feedback that we've heard throughout this process has not been supportive of this plan. And I will repeat my original statement from our meeting almost 2 years ago. The engagement level is aimed to be at an IAP2 spectrum level of, quote, involve, which is a commitment to the public that we will, quote, work with you to ensure that your concerns and aspirations are directly reflected in the alternatives developed and provide feedback on how public input influence the decision, end quote, which is a goalpost I feel we have not met, and I still feel that today. It is not representative of the public engagement to suggest that scenario C was the most popular scenario. I too share concerns about the population growth of our town. I'm concerned about our medical infrastructure, not just our hospital, which VCH describes as a 20-bed acute care facility that now services 270,000 people and has not been updated since, I believe, 1988. but also our lack of GPs. I'm concerned about our lack of childcare, which directly impedes the equitable engagement in our community of women and the ability for a family to afford to live here. I'm concerned about failing intersections. I'm concerned that Howe Sound Secondary will lose part of its library next year to accommodate 2 new classrooms. This says to me that our schools are starting to feel the pressure of all the young people who are living in Squamish. And I'm concerned about increased encampments that exist at a confluence of failing mental health and addiction support, as well as a lack of affordable housing. None of this is our municipal jurisdiction. It's all provincial, but it will ultimately be our responsibility as we see the day-to-day impacts of these crisis-level shortcomings on our loved ones and members in our community. To be clear, I am not opposed to densification. I think gentle densification of this neighborhood in particular would facilitate multi-generational living on a property and keep the profit of densification in the pockets of community members and individuals rather than land brokers and developers. And I would argue in this largely provincially driven objective to have more housing, a roof over your head does not make livability. I liken it to a lifeboat. If we keep inviting people to live in our community and we have these leaks that I just mentioned as provincial jurisdiction, at some point we all suffer. I would also say that there is no reason to believe or evidence that supports that an increase in housing supply will lead to a decrease in housing costs, and affordable housing is what we need first and foremost. Last, and possibly most pressing, I'm concerned about the loss of arable and wild land. Yes, I know a lot of these people are not actively harvesting on these properties, but as Councillor Anderson regularly points out, with regards to our lack of industrial land, if we convert this arable land to housing, there will be no getting it back. If we destroy these wildlife corridors, this habitat for pollinators, birds, fish, and mammals, there will be no getting it back. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Mayor Herford, followed by Councillor Pettingill.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone that spoke this evening and engaged in the process to date. I'm going to attempt to keep my comments brief here, but speaking in support of the motion, as I reflect back on this process, having been part of this process since inception, which was an election cycle ago, the bar has moved in relation to the Bill 44 work, which we've heard, which basically moves the baseline of where we're starting from when we consider our neighborhoods going forward. I think that this plan, as it exists, actually, the neighborhood today does not meet the maximum density that it is zoned for as we sit here having these discussions. Nor do I expect it to over time in relation to this plan. So it's important to know that this isn't planning a specific development that encompasses the entire land base. We've struck what I feel is an appropriate balance of level of detail for what this plan is, which is guidance over time for the neighborhood to evolve, and acknowledges where the pinch points are, where the opportunities are. I will say I've heard about concerns throughout the process around having the community's values represented in the recommendations. I think from an academic perspective, this area could hold a lot more than what's being proposed here. A lot of it aligns with our new baseline, which is Bill 44 R1 zoning. So I think that that this is an appropriate direction. And also, while this plan has been in development, there has been developments have not advanced in that area, which I think exasperates the challenge here, because over time, development does occur at a pace over time, sometimes faster than others, but nothing has happened in this area because of this plan over time. So I think that this is an appropriate level. We are hearing from the province, and we're starting to see glimmers that the all government response to the housing crisis is in fact all government, including Modi and other agencies have been mentioned in comments, for the areas that are inside our responsibilities. I do think this is an appropriate step forward for the community to evolve over time, so that we can continue to have the quality of life that we have today, and our community can function from a transportation perspective, from a having places for the daycares, for the doctors that we don't have, and the public and the emergency services folks that we would like to have and see in our community. So I'm supportive of third reading, and thank you again to everyone who participated.
Thank you. Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, thanks. I've got a few things to share. Hopefully it doesn't get too garbled. I'm trying to squeeze it into 3 minutes. And I will be speaking in support of the resolution. I've heard the comments and from attending a number of the engagements, I know that there are a number of people in the existing neighborhood that weren't happy with the plan. There were people that I spoke to that were pleased with it. But it wasn't universal, and there was significant levels of opposition. The challenge we face as a council and as a community, though, is while that is a critical perspective, it is not the only perspective. And we have to think about not just the issues we're facing today, but the issues we'll face in 10 years and 25 years. We have to think about the people, and I'll give just one concrete example that sticks with me. At the wellness fair about a year ago, I was speaking to an older gentleman in Valleycliff that was quite annoyed with council and how council wasn't listening to seniors and so on. And he was frustrated that he and his wife, they couldn't live in their 2-story home anymore just for accessibility reasons. And they couldn't see any place they could move to that was ground floor, which is what they really needed. And when I sort of spoke to him about the Garibaldi Estates plan and some of the pushback we had received, he was actually very enthusiastic and glad that there was an opportunity that he would maybe be able to stay in Squamish, a place that he loves, because there would be more options for ground oriented. And this is one of the few neighborhoods where we can add a significant amount of that. And so we have also heard from housing advocates and others that we need, this is a prime area that helps many people in our community. And so this is the balance I am trying to weigh, and I believe my colleagues are trying to weigh. We also know there's been some talk about affordability. I don't think anyone has claimed that this would lead to immediately affordable housing. What we know from experience across the country is that multifamily dwelling forms over time tend to end up being more affordable. And so we are thinking about seeing the challenges that we face today and knowing that for decades, people haven't done anything to address those challenges. So we're trying to take those steps today. And the benefits, unfortunately, won't be seen tomorrow. They will take time. But if we don't make those steps, we will never get those benefits. And so we are trying to, as a council and hopefully with our community, trying to do some of those things that are tough today, but pay off for our community in the long term. I'll just touch briefly on parking. There's lots to work on in parking, and this plan is not meant to address parking. It speaks to some parking minimums, but there's a whole bunch of work we have to do there. I think we haven't handled parking well, and I voted against our most recent paid parking decision. But there's a lot more work to do there. I think we can't, though, be planning for solutions where every residence brings multiple vehicles or many, many vehicles. That just makes parking and traffic and everything worse. So we need solutions that minimize that. There are ways to do that, and I think that's a separate discussion. Trees and green space are important. Those are covered, the details in other plans. There is provisions in this for general tree protection, which I hold very dear and I think is critical for densification. I think we should recognize too that, as the mayor said, this is not a change that happens tomorrow. We do not expect the maximum density allowed in this plan to ever be built out. As far as I know, in any of our neighborhood plans, we've never seen the maximum density realized. We understand that various properties can't eventually meet that density, and so that's why you allow for a higher level, expecting
Councillor,
a lower level.
You're well over.
So, okay, I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation with someone who wants to hear further about my thoughts.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I will be supporting the staff recommendation.
There is an alternative to the staff recommendation that's laid out by staff, but I can't support it. There's simply too much time invested here already. We need to move on. We also need to take into account lessons learned. It's been a 4-year journey. We have also other plans underway now for 7 years, a few of them. This is taking too long, and it's costing us, in meeting our housing needs and targets as well. We hopefully can recognize these costs and sacrifices that are going to be made by residents and property owners in the Garibaldi estates, and we really need to be sure that we present ourselves that we are taking this into account. We need to do more work on complete community. I've mentioned to staff numerous times over the last 3-4 years that they're using the term complete community when you should be talking about complete neighborhood. We've got a lot of work to do in that bigger complete community picture, and that's one of the reasons I think we have to move on to get into these other tasks. Economic development. Finishing off the plans or updating our recreation plans, our arts, cultural, and heritage strategy. It's a plan to make a plan, and it's been referred to throughout in this report. We still don't have a plan for cultural facilities, including in this area. We're gonna go up over 1,000 people. We don't have a plan for facilities there yet. We need to get onto that work. We need new design standards and new engagement standards. And I thank Mr. Marc-Andre Gagnon for bringing this to our attention with his contacts elsewhere in the world. I think we need to look seriously at some of his suggestions. And I think that the Park Crescent situation should be illustrative, should be some lessons to learn. Some important highlights. I think the one is the careful work that has obviously been done by our staff. And I'll just highlight one effort, and it's a challenge, and that is in putting in new laneways in future west of Diamond Head Road and west of Kalota. And that's going to be a real challenge. But I see some real care there in the work that staff undertaken and throughout the exercise. We need to address rental housing, and there is a shortage of rental housing in this precinct, and we can and should address that. I'll also refer to Mr. Boza, Mike Boza's observation. We need that range of types of housing, and he's referred to from his own testimonial offered that workers in his Sea to Sky business park are those people that need that rental housing. For next time, we need to look for council. I will not forget the May 9 presentation to Committee of the Whole of this plan or the Stage 3 outcomes. I thought that instead of having the whole thing put to us in one recommendation with the whole thing fixed, we should have had options to discuss. This is a complicated area. I would have liked to have had better opportunity to pick it apart and look at different precincts and discuss them further. For the public engagement, the VLA, I've heard silly things said about the VLA and its history that are simply inaccurate. But what has been missed is the current VLA bylaw was a success story for public engagement. It was the VLA ratepayers that put together that bylaw in cooperation with the district. I thought that more could have been done to repeat that success story in approaching the VLA bylaw this time around. I regret we did not do that. We need to ban NIMBYism from our dialogue in these plans. It's not working for us. It frustrates the outcomes of planning processes. And we need to ask in the next process, why do people use or own cars anyway? We're not asking that question. Until we do, we may be making planning mistakes, and we should take caution around that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. This file has been a big part of life in Squamish for many years, as we heard from Councillor Anderson, 4. I thought it might be 3, but I trust Councillor Anderson's ability to keep track of time. He does that very well. To prepare for this evening, I reviewed the 1,747 pages that Councillor Stoner referred to a little bit easier. Each page, each report, most of those I had read previously, and some of them read multiple times the first time that they came to us throughout this process as well. I reviewed what's posted on the page dedicated to this project on Let's Talk Squamish, and preparing for the public hearing ate up a significant amount of my weekend, and I suspect that my council colleagues had a similar experience over the course of this past weekend to prepare for this meeting. We were elected to take in information, listen to feedback, analyze information with an open mind, process the details, and then come to a conclusion on how to best move forward. And it's important for me to share this because big decisions like this one are made by elected officials, and then inevitably, a bunch of people are going to claim that council didn't listen, didn't consider all the feedback. And I believe I heard some of that this evening. Well, we did listen tonight, just as we've listened to the feedback and the priorities of the residents who have shared their opinions over the last 4 years. It's now time to end this planning process. It is decision time, and I'm ready to put this plan in motion. I support the plan because I believe it appropriately balances new provincial directives, the needs of the community, the wants of the community, the growth realities that are ahead of us, and the needs of builders who will be adding much needed new homes and daycare spaces to the Garibaldi estates. And over the next few years, this plan will help deliver new sidewalks, safer biking infrastructure, new mid-block connections, creative new commercial spaces, new parks and parklets, safer intersections, opportunities for improved transit service, urban agriculture opportunities, and a whole lot more. And before I call the question, I do want to acknowledge the hard work of staff in putting together those more than 7,000 pages to get us to where we're at. It was a lot of work and it was hard. And consultation processes like this one don't work when nobody opens up and shares their opinions about it. So thank you to all of those who spoke tonight, spoke bravely and from your hearts, and all of those who posted to Let's Talk Squamish or participated by commenting in some other way. Councillor Stoner?
I believe we get 2 rounds of comments and I still have further. Is that all right?
You believe correctly. I was hoping we could wrap it up there, but clearly you have more to say, so take it away.
It's been 4 years in the making. I'll take a few extra minutes if I may. So through the chair, I just want to respond to some of the things that I heard from my council colleagues. And I want to echo Councillor Greenlaw's frustration with some of, I think as she put it, the holes in the lifeboat that are really the jurisdiction of other orders of government. And while I recognize that those are very real in our community, I do think it's really important also to acknowledge that every level of government, federal and provincial, every major party has in recent elections in the past 6 to 8 months moved to tie federal and provincial funding for infrastructure and affordable housing, the things that we know we need, and to some degree to healthcare and education with the delivery of housing. They have all threatened to take away that funding if we do not deliver on housing. And so there's a real piece here that is very much in our jurisdiction, which is about delivering on housing across the spectrum. And part of that is implementing Bill 44 from the province and ideally going beyond it so that we can go to the province and we can go to the feds and say, this is why we need the money. This is why we need time from MOTI. And that is where I think it is important and behooves us on council and my council colleagues to double down on our provincial and federal advocacy because our town does deserve more. Our town has been growing as one of the fastest in the province. And I think that that is where our work really lies. And it's outside necessarily of the bounds of this particular plan, but this is what we can do in our jurisdiction is plan for the growth. And then that lets us go to the province and the feds who have the dollars that don't come from our individual property taxes, but from bigger taxpayers to be able to pay for the infrastructure that we know that we need.
Council, any other comments? Councillor Pettingill, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to try and squeeze in a few remaining thoughts. I sort of tried to rush through. Just my partner is a teacher, a public school teacher, and from my perspective, there are too many students per teacher right now. But what I also understand from conversations we had with the school board and the province is that this is not an issue where the province is trying to catch up on schools. And if we were able to just slow down growth, we would see those rates change. For better, for worse, the province is comfortable with the teacher-student ratio we have. And so trying to address that through a neighborhood plan will not achieve an outcome we are hoping for. So like my colleague said, this is an area where we need continued advocacy, but for me, this is separate from a neighborhood plan because a neighborhood plan does not seem to be a tool to affect those sorts of changes. I would add that 3 of us tomorrow are meeting with Vancouver Coastal Health through the Sea to Sky Regional Hospital District Board, where we will absolutely be advocating for numerous things that not just Squamish, but our whole corridor needs. And again, for me, there are needs that are everyone agrees on, and I do not see that a neighborhood plan as a lever or a solution to dealing with those. I think we are pursuing the advocacy and we need to do that, but it's separate from a neighborhood plan. The last thing, just want to sort of touch on, most of the zones here still allow single family. And so we have, what we have done in most of the zones is add new options. And we are in a place where people need options, and not everyone wants to have that change, wants their neighbors to have that flexibility. And again, to the trade-offs I spoke to earlier, I think we are in a place where we do need to allow individual landowners to have that choice. I know people are afraid that developers will capitalize on that, and the only ones that will win are the developers. But the reality is, these are also opportunities for wonderful people to make Squamish part of their home, to reduce the per capita infrastructure cost, which is what happens with new development. And so again, back to some of the trade-offs we have and trying to find that balance. So we didn't take single family zoning out of most of these areas. We just added new options and trying to find some trade-offs there. Again, not everyone is going to like the trade-offs. I do think this is a good plan, actually, but it is a plan full of lots of trade-offs. And I hope that we can continue to move forward together as a community. OCPs are ever adapting, and so this is not a static plan either. We will continue to discuss, even despite support today for third reading. This will be a forever ongoing discussion in this neighborhood and throughout all of Squamish about how we adapt and grow, because change is inevitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Chair, I was concerned that I made a comment about NIMBYism a minute ago that might be badly misinterpreted due to my clumsiness. And what I meant to say was, is the application of the label. That is disastrous for a planning process. I can speak from experience from Hospital Hill, my old neighborhood, when the Scott Crescent planning was underway. We have people here tonight, Ms. McMurtry comes to mind, and the Fentons come to mind. I spent an afternoon in there looking out their front window with them, looking at details, sidewalks, parking issues, ditches. And when we call a neighborhood or its residents NIMBY, we miss the opportunity to take seriously the opportunity to listen to those details from the people with experience. I think we have to learn some lessons next time out. We will have future neighborhood plans. We've got to learn from this one and take that into account. I think this is one of the most important things I'd like to impart, is to let the audience know and to share with my colleagues here, we're new at this. We've got to get better next time around. We've got to, for the legitimacy of the process and the benefits that they can deliver, including those neighborhood details that we need to do a better job, to be seen to be a better job to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments before I call the question? Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, just the point of clarifying, and I just want to be clear that I have not heard anyone on council or our staff mention the term NIMBYism. I have seen everyone really grapple with legitimate challenges and concerns from the community, and we haven't come up with a plan that addresses every desire and every thought. As I spoke to, lots of trade-offs. But I think it's important, and I don't know, maybe in the public or on Facebook, people have been using that word. It's certainly not something that's been part of my mindset or that I've seen as part of this group. And so I just want to make it very clear that that is not part of the discussion I've seen in our decision-making or at our tables. And I think it's a good thing that that hasn't been there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Councillor Greenlaw opposed. The motion carries. Councillor Hamilton, is there anything you'd like to? No motion to adopt, which takes us to item number 6. Councillor Hamilton?
I'd like to move to terminate the meeting.
And is there a seconder for that? Councillor Stoner, all in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, folks.